Hey folks, Alcris here with a quick video talking about how to think about what to found as in terms of nation and family based on what you see on the map. So I'm doing this on a continent map and I'll show a bunch of starts and then talk about what to found and also what to look around on the map. So first we see our location. If we hold down Alt, we can see the coordinate that we're on. So we're on 5121. We go to the tooltip here for the map and then hover over the map size. You can see that the width and height of the map is 58 to 34. So we know that we are at 51, which is 7 tiles away from the edge, which means our opponent is going to be 7 tiles away from the edge, so 7. And then we know that the distance to our opponent is 51 minus 7, which is oftentimes 44, which means we're 44 tiles away from our opponent. However, of course, the map can have different mountains, hills, so it might not be a straight shot. You might have to go around, but that usually is good to check early on just to know how much potential pressure in the worst case you're under. If your opponent is within 20 or 30 tiles, you're probably going to have a very bloody early middle game. If they're 60 or 70 tiles away, on a larger map, you probably have a little bit more breathing room before they show up. Of course, there's always exceptions. Opponents will sometimes settle directly towards you, but that's really good to know. Other thing to look at is wonders, especially key early wonders and especially key late game wonders. So I see there's a Heliopolis here, and I also see there's a pyramids. For pyramids, you do need an arid tile. There's plentiful arid tiles here, example. Sometimes you might want to consider grabbing the pyramids. Egypt, of course, has the easiest time because they start with stone, so that's something to keep in mind as well. That other way, now let's take a look at what the map tells us. You can actually show this custom overlay here to show. I have mine set to just showing tile resources. So the way to set this up is you go to the custom overlay customizer, choose tile resources here, and then hit save custom overlay. And then if you want to show it, you just right click on this and you'll always see that. And if you go into the game options here, you can say default map overlay custom, and that way it will enable that overlay every time you load a game, which is really nice if you're playing by cloud and loading turns every time, or just if you're restarting a map a bunch of times as I'm about to be doing. All right, so what else does the map tell us here? So we can see that we got some crabs, we got some pearls. We can probably pull all these in depending on where we move around. Some horses, some ore, some silver, and some incense. So generally what you're looking at is you're trying to think like, what can I extract value early on from the map? What does the map tell me? And try to settle something that extracts value from the map. So here, for example, we see there's silver. Silver is a precious resource. We also see some pearls, also a precious resource. There's 2 precious resources, which usually is the threshold for, I think I might want to consider going something that takes advantage of patrons. So patrons, I'll just pick a random nation with patrons. Patrons gives 25% culture per precious resource, and once you have 2 precious resource, it really kind of goes to the moon. However, we also see there's crabs here and pearls. Since we are on a continent map, maybe we want to consider traders here because that will double the output for these crabs and these pearls. So that is also very much a potential thing. Very nice trader start here. Something to keep in mind. Also, stupid trader tricks that I'm just going to show off. We'll swap to traders. Normally, you would probably want to move over here to grab both those starting resources in. But with traders, because you do get that fair early on, and I'll just randomly pick Schemer as my starting archetype, because you do get that starting fair, you can actually place it somewhere that will potentially grab tiles within your boundary, and that saves you an order from having to move your settler around. And once you've founded your city, you have a little bit more vision. You see where your next city site is, and then you kind of can try to guess like what the lay of the land might be. Generally, if you're usually going to be pretty order constrained unless you're playing a schemer on your first turn. So generally you want to try to divine where your camp might be. So a scout move to try to poke around might not be a bad idea. And here we found our camp, and then we want to ideally move our slinger and then either assign a good general that does at least 10% damage, or take a promotion like Fierce, or potentially Shield Bearer, or even Highlander that helps get us to do more damage. If you don't have any of those offered, focus can sometimes be worth picking just to roll the dice and pray that you'll get a crit, although it's not guaranteed. So here, I think I probably would pick General, maybe. Potentially we could marry her as well later. So let's go ahead and pick the general. I'm just going to illustrate why. So we'll play a turn here just for illustration purposes. Now, one thing that only schemers can do, you can trade 2 legitimacy for 10 orders, which will then of course let you do more moves and see more of the map. Potentially you could get some harvests in. Here, we probably want to, as traders, improve these crabs early. So another thing you can do is, of course, you can assign yourself as a, I actually assigned the schemer instead of assigned the wrong unit as our general. So let me fix that. I did not mean to assign the schemer as the general, though that's also very doable. You can also assign yourself as a governor for an early move. That can be a early choice. Again, schemers give you that order flexibility to do all those things. And then here you could, for example, want to improve these crabs, but we see we have 7 orders. So you might want to, you won't be able to do that. So ideally you want to try to find something you can chop potentially without like not too far away. There doesn't look like there's anything here. So we're trying to use up all these orders. Since we don't see anything we can chop, another option, we probably want to improve a growth resource first. For traders, it does double growth. The reason for that is the more growth we get, the faster our settler comes out. We tend to do a lot of growth builds in the capital early. Okay, so that's pretty much turn 1. I'll just randomly pick a tech. Not going to talk about tech choices. I'm playing hot seat. That's why you see me flipping around here. And now I want to show exactly why you might want to, why that 4.4 is that magic number, why you need 10%. Because the barbarian in the camp is at 4.3 defensive strength, and that's coming from 3 base, plus 25% because it's urban, and plus 20% because it's in the hovel. The hovel is the type of barbarian camp it's in. So the hovel will eventually upgrade to an outpost. When it upgrades, what will happen is it will swap the unit inside the city out and put a new higher strength unit in. So each tier of the hovel goes to hovel, outpost, encampment, and then bastion, and that controls what strength unit produces out of that camp. So a hovel just produces 3 strength units. A encampment produces, a hovel produces 3 strength unit, a outpost produces 4 strength unit, encampment produces 5 strength unit, and a bastion produces 6 strength units. You'll notice that the timing here varies. It's a little random. So this one's developing in 14 years, 20 to 30. The other important thing to keep in mind here is, you'll notice the reason we want to get to 7 damage, why we want that upgrade, is because that way we can kill this barbarian in 3 hits. And we see this counter here will produce new unit in 3 years. And that tells us that it's going to produce a new unit in 3 years. 3 years from now, we're now on to turn 2, means it'll produce a new unit on turn 5. So if we don't deal 7 damage starting on turn 2, 7, 7, 7, 21 damage on turn 2, 3, and 4, 7 together, 21, then we can kill the unit. But if we don't, then another unit will spawn. I'll just, for illustrative purpose, not attack this turn, just to show you what that looks like. And then I'll attack. A cool sellout event. I'll attack again. I'll move the scout over so we can see a little better. And now we are on turn 5, and we didn't deal enough damage. And we see that we have another unit to kill. We can clear the camp, but we still need to clear the other unit. Fortunately, I can't undo all the way, but I can restart the map here. Because we are in hot seat, so you can't undo turns in hot seat. But just to show off here, if you do kill that unit early, then you'll be able to clear that camp without having another unit spawn. So let's pause there. So we can just hit new map here, and it'll generate a new map with the same settings. This is convenient if you're just trying to get a sense of what the map could look like, or if you want to practice how to think about what to found as we're doing here. Right. So this location is a little different. So once again, we can check for wonders. See pyramids is available. Heliopolis and Colosseum are available. Other key wonders as well. But we don't see any arid tiles for pyramids, so maybe we don't want to. It's going to sometimes be hard to find an arid tile. You generally want to build the pyramids in your capital or your second or third city. Can be hard to find arid tiles. By the way, if you hold down Z, you can clear away all vegetation, which makes it a little easier to see hills, as well as the type of tiles that are there. So given this location, we see some pearls, which is a precious resource and also a sea resource, some horses, some sheep, some marble, growth early on, barley. This kind of location can do a little bit of everything. We might want to move 1 tile over here just to grab that marble in borders, or we could do trader silliness by, well, actually we can't do trader silliness here because we would need to, yeah, we can't do trader silliness here. the marble, or yeah, we can't because it's chaining off the, this tile chains off the marble, or chains off the barley. So location-wise here, pearls, potentially trader, one precious resource. One sea resource doesn't really scream trader to me. One precious resource also doesn't really scream patrons. We do have sheep, which might lead us towards a nation like Hatti, which starts with husbandry, so we can take advantage of that sheep for early growth. Persia is the other nation that starts with husbandry. The barley could be interesting here as well. For a farm, we probably want to improve the farm first. We don't necessarily need to start something with husbandry. There's only one pasture resource. This kind of start pretty much can do most things here. So yeah, I mean, again, scientific will tell you landowners is pretty good. Hatti are pretty good. So something like Hatti landowners could be really interesting here. For example, we could found, and then we have some barley that we can immediately go and improve. Of course, we want to find where the barbarian camp is. We see that this is over here. So potentially we'll want to do a scout move this way, and ta-da, we have found the camp, and we can now figure out how to pull our warrior over there. Let's see what we have. We don't have a great general available. We do have steadfast, which is of course great, so we'll want to move that over. Yeah, we could move it. I think we can just move one tile. The river is on this side, so we're good. So we can just move over here and then upgrade for steadfast, and we have an order left. We can potentially move on to the barley so that we can start it next turn. So something like that might be a decent start. Again, there are no right or wrong answers. As after we found it, we see that they revealed some crabs here that we weren't able to see before, which might be something that we want to, maybe we should have gone traders. But again, just one visible sea resource. You won't be able to see or know everything that is out there. And the most critical thing is to identify that second camp and then move over so you can do that sweet 7 damage the very next turn. All right, here's another map. So this one, we've got another sea resource. We are on continent. We see there's some mountains over here. We can actually see our location. We're at 5213. Again, we can hover over and see that the map is 58 by 34. So we know we're on the bottom right side of the map. And these mountains and water mean maybe there's like a narrow choke. You can read a lot from sort of where these mountains are. Location, wonder-wise, there are no pyramids available. There is both Heliopolis and Colosseum available, as well as Museum, Ishtar Gate, Necropolis, and Jerwan Aqueduct is available, which might be interesting for some early science play with a sage's city or a landowner city or a trader city. The map tells us here we've got some gems, which are a precious resource. You can always check by hovering over the tooltip. Got some crabs, which is a sea resource, barley, salt, horses, a little bit of everything. Crabs and barley, both decent for growth early on. We can, of course, slightly move or do stupid trader tricks by placing a fair here without having to move. This start can do a lot of different things. We've got some horses, so potentially we could build nations. Horses don't necessarily mean that you have to go a unique unit with horses. It just means that if you want to build your unique unit as a nation that has horses and don't want to found riders, then you can take advantage of a nation that has a unique unit that uses horses. So things that could be justifiable here, traders, very possible here. Landowners, very possible. You've got 2 luxury resources to improve, so that can get some value as well. I wouldn't go hunters here, for example, just because there's no camp resource to take advantage of. So champions also wouldn't really go champions here. There's no ore. Again, you kind of go through every family and think what would benefit here. Patrons, there's only one precious. It's doable, but not amazing. Clerics, I think right now, generally not something you necessarily want to found with. Artisans, also not something you necessarily want to found with. You can, but I don't know that that's great. Sages potentially could be a good founding here, although I think for sages you kind of really would love marble early, but again, it's not bad. This kind of start doesn't really scream anything. It kind of can be pretty flexible in terms of what you can do here. This is a start that screams something in particular. It screams either traders or even patrons, honestly. You do have some game and no other growth resource apart from game. Checking wonders here, we do have pyramids available. We see some desert tiles, so that could be an option as well. And Heliopolis, but no Colosseum. We do have a lighthouse, which could be really interesting on this map as well. But yeah, this is kind of more of an imbalanced start. We do have some dies that are slightly out of reach. We also have this interesting thing here that the mountains actually block us off to the south, which could lead to a pretty interesting game. So I don't know that we need to move to grab these pearls. This doesn't really make that much of a difference, and I think I'd rather have a sea connection to the bottom. And of course, we can, of course, improve that. This would be an amazing place for a net shrine. We would boost 3 pearls. So we might want to look at nations that have a net shrine. Off the top of my head, or opening the reference spreadsheet on the other monitor to tell me which ones have a water shrine. That is Carthage, Greece, Persia, and Axum. I don't know that I would optimize around the shrine, but something like Axum Traders here could be particularly good, or Axum Patrons. Both are very justifiable. It really depends on, do you want to, I mean, this city is going to go to the moon in terms of pearls here with traders, or sorry, with patrons. You can potentially get 5 precious resources in your borders. So something like this, but like, what are we going to the moon for? Well, Heliopolis. So if we want to try to think, okay, we're going to get legendary in this city, and we're going to build Heliopolis. Heliopolis, of course, requires a dry, arid, or sand tile. We do see we have those. So this could be, for example, an Axum patron start. We know that this is a continent map, so potentially we want a nation with traders later on. So we can found, for example, and see what that looks like. And then Axum also has the water shrine available to us. So we can see that it does have that, which will give us 20% for all these nets. Yeah, and then we have another silver resource. So this really feels like a patron start, just because you have so many precious resources. You could also do trader completely justifiably here. Again, like culture, unless you're shooting something, culture isn't valuable in and of itself. It's valuable if you want to grab particular wonder, but something like or if you want to scale off of culture, culture is definitely valuable, but like strong versus legendary, there's not much point pushing to legendary unless there's a wonder that is particularly tempting. Heliopolis is definitely such a wonder, so this could be a very powerful patron start. Again, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just something to consider. So this is a really interesting start here. So we might want to scout this way. We've got that free city site. We're desperately trying to find out where on earth the barbarian camp is. Great, we found it. Took a lot of searching. So we'll probably want to move this over. We might not get there in time. We don't have a great general available to us. So we might want to do something like focus and pray here. And if we just quickly play the next turn here, and then finish here, we can see we are actually going to have a heck of a time getting here. This terrain is terrible. So yeah, we will not be able to clear this site in time, so we're going to have to deal with this pawn, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens. What you want to do in those circumstances is you'll probably want to pull your settler to that location so you can settle the city, so that the unit can heal itself up. Other things to do, other things we should have considered. Because our only growth resource on this location is a camp, we'll want a nation that has trapping so that we can improve growth. And not every nation starts with trapping, so you'll want to make sure that you have a nation with trapping. So a lot of the starting game here, if you really want to lock in growth and then figure out what else does the map tell me. I'll just quickly play through a little bit more, playing pretty quickly here, non-optimally, but just showing like what happens. We are not going to be able to clear the site, but we are getting there in time. We can scout around it. Potentially we can protect, since we're not playing as a schemer, we can protect our slinger here by making sure that the unit will not spawn. This is something Scientific pointed out. The unit's preferred spots to spawn is here, and then counterclockwise around. So if I'm understanding correctly, it will also try to stay away from units. I think it'll either spawn here or here. I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and play that out here. So we are needing to, we're going to keep this scout here just because, you know, they're going to get a unit spawn just for illustrative purposes here. And again, it's playing hot seat. All right, we can pick a marriage. Sure, and indeed, notice that it spawned far away. Fortunately, it's a ranged unit, which doesn't help us much. But if it were a melee unit, for example, it would not be able to do anything to us, which would be very, very valuable. And again, that's partly because it's lake here. And you can see it did spawn on turn 5. This is why clearing those camps on turn 5 is so valuable. And then really quickly, I will just show what happens here. Okay, we did not get lucky and did not get any crits. Fortunately, we didn't crit at the end, which would have been really annoying. I'm going to turn off that overlay so you can see the health a little better. Now we want to use our precious orders. This is really, really awkward here. We'll probably definitely want to get these pearls improved and like water bridge over here because, dear Lord. Like, yeah, like this is just terrible terrain to move through. But we're going to get that settler over there. Probably want to start another settler. Notice also the power of just all this money here. Where is this money coming from? Oh, builder money. That's what it is. Builder money is so good. All right, we'll continue here. Just want to demonstrate founding on the city. Founding on this. We did not get any crits yet. We'll keep moving over here. You'll see we're very close to dying here. So this is, and we will not. So this is, yeah, I will just randomly pick a tech and demonstrate one more thing here. This is why you want to have that settler come along. We pretty much had the worst possible distance here. This was really terrible terrain to our first city site. So we kill here. If we don't have a settler coming to save us, this barbarian is going to kill this unit next turn. But because we have the settler coming to save us, we can come here and found this, and just for illustrative purposes, let's say we're going to go champions, because we want our second city to be a military city. That's usually a good idea. Champions also gives us a militia, so we can kill this. But for illustrative purposes, I'm just going to start a slinger here, because it's always good to get an early military unit in your second city. And then here, notice now the barbarian has attacked the militia, actually, randomly, which is fine. But it, importantly, can't hit the slinger because the slinger is safe in the city. And if we didn't have that settler coming to that slinger's rescue in situations where we're getting a second unit spawn, that slinger would be dead and things would be very, very awkward. So that's why it's really helpful to pull this, like settle onto the site you just cleared. Because if you do deal with a second spawn, and sometimes it's non-avoidable, as we saw here, you'll be able to protect that very, very important slinger. You do not want to lose your starting slinger or warrior if you can avoid it. All right, let's do a couple more starts. So here's one that shows us 3 pearls. We can also check no pyramids. We do see some arid tiles. And then legendary wonders, Heliopolis is the big one that stands out here. We could grab this sheep, so that might be interesting. So we see pearls, fish, and sheep. So this might be, I'm just going to pick something. We could do something like Hati patrons. The rationale is Hati will benefit from these pearls from patrons. That's 3 precious resources. Hati, because they get husbandry, will get us the sheep as a growth resource and this fish. Another option you could do is traders, which will double the output for the nets on these, and also the fish as well. So that's even more growth potential. Yeah, so I think this is very much a patrons or trader start where we are here. If we are starting traders, we could potentially do stupid fair tricks again. I'm just going to illustrate what that looks like, where we can save ourselves a order by placing the fair that way and just grabbing that with borders. All right, let's take a look at another map. Here's an interesting map. So we've got some sheep and some fish and some pigs. So this to me screams Hati trader, just because we can get value from the fish, we can get value from husbandry on the pigs and the sheep. This very much screams Hati trader. You can also do other traders, but then you won't be able to activate the pigs and sheep, although with 3 fish, you should be fine. You don't really need to activate like this is 5 growth resources, 3 growth resources, totally fine. But yeah, just let's do a couple more. So just spawning a couple more maps, you'll get a sense that Continent really likes its sea resources. To me, Continent really strongly favors nations that have traders available. Those nations are Axum, Babylon, Carthage, and Hati. The rationale there is just you get a lot of sea resources. They tend to be very plentiful on the map. And as traders, you can just settle all the trader sites around the edges of the map near sea resources, and you get significant benefit from 100% extra sea resources. Other things to think about when you're thinking about sea resources and trader nations. So trader nations that start with trapping. Hati does not start with trapping, so we would not be able to get that game online if we were able to bring it in our borders. We could move, of course, for the pearls. Our starting location doesn't get either, so we kind of have a choice here. Move towards that game, or move slightly north and get crabs and pearls. So given that's 2 resources instead of just 1, we can do that, of course, because traders are so strong. If we do something like Babylon trader, and I'll just randomly pick a builder again, because we can place that fair, we can actually bring that game into borders as well. And look, there's another pearls. This is just an amazing site with I think something where you have lots of seafood like crabs tends to makes me favor it over something like patrons where there's only one pearl, though there are two pearls here, but we didn't see that, of course, until after we founded. So Babylon is a trader nation that starts the trapping. Carthage is a trader nation that starts the trapping. And Axum is a trader nation that starts the trapping. So actually, only Hatti is a trader nation that doesn't start with trapping. So when you see something in game, you probably want to not found Hatti there. Of course, again, these rules are just general guidelines. You want to maximize what's on the map. You want to get value out of what's on the map, but you don't necessarily have to. You could totally justifiably found Hatti there and say, oh, I'm not going to worry about improving that game early until I get trapping. You will get trapping pretty soon. Trapping's a good tech to have. It's on the way to Mildrill. It's on the way to Compo. So it's just, and there's lots of crap resources to improve, so you can probably tech to trapping before you get game. So that's not the end of the world to optimize for. But I think it is important to look at the wonders that are available, understand your position on the map. So we see that we're in the bottom right corner here at 5212. Again, if you always forget the map dimensions, you just can hover over the map size here. Let's take a look at a couple more, and then we'll close out this video. This is very rapid fire here. This, again, we're on continent, so you're going to have lots of sea resources. Something like this with just one crabs and 3 pearls and a gold, to me, feels like patrons. There's only one growth, but this is a rather amazing patrons capital. So the nations with patrons are Greece, Hatti, again, Rome, and Axum. And Assyria as well. Sorry, there's 5 nations with patrons. And given this sort of start, you can really go with any of those patron nations. A start with this many precious resources really does kind of demand a patron start. You could also do traders here with the crabs and the 3 pearls. Both are very viable. And again, you're going to see this pattern on the continent because you have so many sea resources available. You're going to tend towards traders potentially as a starting location. Of course, landowners can, of course, take advantage of this as well. Landowners are almost never a bad choice. But when you have lots of pearls, that they're also a precious resource, which then tends towards patron starts. So for example, I wouldn't start a hunter start here. There's no hunter resources to take advantage of. There's no benefit to going hunter. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's just that there's no point. The map doesn't tell you that. A champion start here would also not be worth it. There's no ore. You can't really magnify the power of champions. You could do riders here if you want to start with an extra scout, perhaps if you're doing schemer. But again, there's nothing on the map that screams riders to me. And riders generally, I think usually you'd want that as a second city, as your military city. It starts connected. There's not much point in having your capital start automatically connected because it is automatically connected anyway. Statesman, potentially statesman, I think generally better not as your capital, just because you can run decrees in your statesman seat. And then decrees with constitution with your capital. Of course, that you don't necessarily need to. If you do tyranny, then you can just have a statesman capital. Statesman has the best civics production in the game, is friendly, plus 6 civics. So just base production there is really great. Sages, you could start sages on this spot. Some growth with the pearls, some growth with the crabs. But again, there's nothing in this spot that really screams to sages. Sages, you're definitely going to probably want to make your science city capital. Sages are also sometimes better to found later because you can get a better tech. So again, my point here is that there's no right or wrong. Artisans, also an option here, although patrons with this many precious will beat artisans to legendary, and we see there's both Heliopolis and Colosseum. Colosseum does require a river. Conveniently have a river. These are all things you want to check for. Heliopolis requires a dry tile, so arid or sand, and there does not seem to be anyone here, so that's something to consider. Landowners, really can't go wrong with landowners. Clerics, I don't know that I would found early clerics right now as a cap. You can, of course, if you're planning to go for an early monasticism to get monasteries, but ideally we'd love to see some grove resources that we could put the monasteries around. But yeah, and traders, definitely a vital start. We'll look at one more map, and then we'll close out this video. Here's another start we're looking at. We see 3 fish, a game, and horses. We see some arid tiles. See, there's Heliopolis and Colosseum. We do have the river. We do have the arid tiles. There also is a pyramids here. We see game, fish. So this is potentially you want something with trapping. Traders, of course, great choice. You wouldn't go patrons here. You do have that horse resource. So Egypt is, of course, very much a possibility here. Egypt landowners, really hard to go go wrong, because they can, of course, quickly improve that game. Of course, hunters also potentially a viable start with the game, with the growth, with the fish. That really does scream traders to me. And I think that's kind of the theme of content. Content is just really strong for traders. We'll look at some other maps in future videos. And yeah, to sum up here, hopefully you've learned basically how to figure out where you're on the map. Hold down Alt, how to remember the map size that you're on. Just hover over the map size icon here so you can know exactly how far away your opponent is on a mirror map. Considerations that you should take into account for early wonders in terms of arid and river for things like Colosseum and Heliopolis. The resources on the map, what to think about when founding, and then nations and families. Basically, how can I extract as much value as I can out of my initial starting location? That's it for this video. Feel free to leave any questions or comments or other videos that you'd like to see, and thank you for watching.